Hey everyone, today we're playing a game of Combat Mission Final Blitzkrieg. It is a meeting engagement between me as the UK Army and Taki as the German Army. The map we've selected this time poses a lot of interesting tactical problems for both of us. The main feature of it is this big river that snakes through the center of the map, almost dividing it in two, with victory points placed on both sides of the river. So each of us gets a major victory point in the back, and then each of us gets two minor victory points on our side of the river, close to the crossing points. So on my side, I have the South Bridge. You're going to hear me repeatedly throughout this video refer to this as the East Bridge. I have no idea why. It is, in fact, the South Bridge, and the opposite side, of course, would be the North. I refer to it as the West over and over again. Apparently, I cannot read the compass in the upper right-hand corner. So yeah, we have this South Bridge, a little bit of a slope after you come across it, with another little bit of a dip there, and then heads over into the town. Coming across the middle of the map, we end up with this nice little hill here, which I'm hoping I can take advantage of. It looks like it might have some decent sight lines into the town. The farm itself, a little bit of a defensive cluster of buildings, but otherwise fairly exposed. It should have sight lines into the edge of the town through the building on the side, and of course along the stone fences. This bridge is pretty exposed overall, with just one building on the opposite side, and then heading over onto the north side of the map, we have a crossing and a bunch of forests which lead into the final victory point. So overall, I'm pretty excited about this. A lot of different ways that both of us can approach the battle. So let's go take a look at my force composition and what my initial plans are. For this game, I brought two companies of motorized infantry and an armor squadron. Both companies of infantry are mounted in Bedfords. A company is going to be taking positions in the farm, first platoon driving in on their truck. Second platoon is going to head to the South Bridge and set up on the reverse slope. And third platoon is going to be held in reserve. B company is going to stage in the field near the farm, and they are going to be my main effort to push across the river crossing, and hopefully using those trees as cover to prevent anything from the town or the middle section being able to fire upon them. My armor squadron, I do make a bit of a change from what I have here, with instead of two Fireflies going to the South Bridge, I send one Firefly and a Sherman 3. And then up towards where my main effort is on the north side, it's two Sherman 3s and a Firefly. I felt like I needed a little bit of extra anti-armor in more places of the map, just in case I ran into anything nasty. The Achilles is going to set up on that little hill in the middle and hopefully be able to watch anything coming out of the town moving towards that middle bridge. The Wasps have also gone with the main effort, hoping to burn anything that is posing problems in the forests. For my target reference points, I did bring 5 of them, which is probably a little excessive considering I only had 4 25-pounders. However, they are spread around anywhere I thought I might need some help. So the South Bridge TRP, in case I end up losing it, I can hammer anything that tried to take the position. The town, for obvious reasons, artillery in a town is always a good idea if you're going to try and assault it. Then both sides of the middle bridge, depending on how far the enemy advances, and then just off to the side of the victory point on the north side, so that I can soften it up in case my opponent has put any infantry up in those trees. And with the first turn underway, all my forces are moving off to their assigned locations. And naturally, right away, this Sherman 3 is going to bog down and cause a bit of a traffic jam, blocking a Firefly and a command jeep. Everyone else making pretty good progress. Just plowing over those hedges as they come up to them. But then, this Wasp here is also going to bog down and cause another traffic jam, blocking another Wasp and another Sherman. Over in this area, it is same kind of idea. We're getting a bit of a traffic jam going on as the trucks are trying to plow their way over hedges and getting slowed down. And pretty similar story over on this side, except this time it's just some property damage instead of mowing over some hedges, taking out some poor farmer's fence as they zip up to the house. So skipped ahead a few turns here to the start of turn 6. I haven't actually spotted any German units yet, so there's not really been a whole lot to show. However, there is that nice big church tower in the town on the opposite side of the river, and I feel like it's a good idea just to put a few tank shells into it, because there's a good chance that there's something up there that wants to take a look at my forces. So there we have it. Haven't spotted anything, but I'm gonna blast it a few times with Sherman 3 here. Okay, we're a couple more turns in now, and let's take a look, as most of my forces are roughly where I want them to be. So over on the eastern side of the map, I still have this Sherman parked on the road, and he is continuing to put some periodic fire. I think I'm doing about 15 seconds per turn up into that church tower, just to make sure anything that's in there has a bad time. I've got a Firefly parked here, and he can see up this road. 2-inch mortar, just in case anything approaches. It should be able to fire up to the tree lines. Over on the actual crossing itself, I managed to split up a couple squads and have them on the river slope, and I've actually moved a small scout section up to the tree line. They're able to see down the road just to see if any Germans are coming up this way. They'll give a little bit of advanced warning so these guys on the river slope know what's coming. Moving a little bit farther over, I've got another squad split up, and they are going to cover off this side of the road, so if any Germans try to sneak up along the river line or through the tree lines, they should be able to put some fire into them as they approach. Almost missed the Achilles, so I've got an Achilles, and this is the 2 IC sections. They have binoculars. Actually, they don't have binoculars, so it was kind of didn't work out as I planned there. So the Achilles is watching the entire central area. If anything rolls up to these hedge lines, it will hopefully see them and be able to shoot at them. The actual farm itself, I've spread out throughout the farm, got all the buildings occupied. They're just getting good sight lines through this gap in the trees. They can see through the gap to the outskirts of the town, and they should be able to see across this bridge as well. I've got my forces all staged, and they are down in that little dip in the terrain there, so they should be sheltered from being spotted. So it seemed like a pretty good safe space to get everyone gathered up as they get ready to push across the river here. And then the actual river itself, I just have a bunch of forces stuck along the tree lines to see any Germans that pop up. And let's hit play here. As they approach, we should actually start seeing some spots. Yes, here we go. So the first spots of the game, and it is of course a tank contact, or it could be an armored vehicle. So keep an eye over on this section. I have Sherman 3s rolled up into the tree line. I've got a Bren carrier, and my little Jeep with its one driver acting as my sacrificial scout, who is going to come under fire pretty much right away as he gets into the trees there. And starting to get a couple more spots. These should be infantry spots. Yeah, infantry. And more on the other side, and our first confirmed spot here, infantry, and he's going to go down pretty much right away from that Sherman 3 seeing them. So a little bit of exchange of fire going across the river, and we've made our first contact. Right, so my tank there is going to take a penetration, but it was just a bullet from an infantry, I think it was a rifle, ricocheting off the hatch and going inside. It doesn't actually injure any crew. However, I'm just going to pause quickly here as we have a confirmation on tank. This is a Panzer IV. rolled up to the tree line there, and over on this side of the map, hiding behind the church, is another Panzer IV. So 2 Panzer IVs. Should be pretty easy for my 17 pounders on the Fireflies and Achilles to take those out. However, a Sherman armor is not going to stand up to their shots either, so it's going to be kind of a case of whoever gets the first hit. So my Sherman is actually backing up since I did have the contact on the armored vehicle and I didn't really know what it was. I didn't want it to like run into a Panther or a Tiger, so he's going to back away. And I'm starting to bring a Firefly up, because it should be able to deal with most German armor, especially at this ranges. And we just had another contact. There's another Panzer IV up here. So that's 2 Panzer IVs in this tree line, and a Panzer IV hiding behind the church. And another sound contact popped up briefly there from another vehicle. And unfortunately, I am going to take a hit there. I believe that came from the one over behind the church. Let's actually just backpedal a tiny bit and see where that comes from, if I can see it. No idea where it came from. Actually, it was this angle because it hit the upper right hull. So, shot from the one behind the church. It is going to kill the driver, but it does not knock out the tank. Right at the end of the last turn, I spotted something else that is a little bit concerning. That is this Jagdpanther right here. That is not what I wanted to see. I'm much more comfortable dealing with Panzer IVs than dealing with a Jagdpanther. My 17 pounders will definitely struggle to do some damage to that guy. Right. Starting off the turn, Panzer IV takes a shot and wounds the leader, always the leaders. But they mostly escape, except another Panzer IV from over on the tree line there puts another shot into the Sherman III. This one managing to wound the replacement driver, but not actually knocking the tank out again. So that is 2 penetrations it's taken from Panzer IVs, and it is still moving and fighting. However, the driver is a little bit panicked and is rapidly reversing out. Firefly is moving up, and another Sherman III is moving up. I think it was around now that I started to get the suspicion that my opponent had the same idea I had. He's pushing most of his forces across this river crossing, as opposed to the much more exposed middle bridge or the eastern bridge here. And now we're starting to get some infantry contacts popping up in the hedges. You can still see that Sherman III way back here is still putting some fire into the church. Yeah, we got some infantry starting to take positions on the other side of the bridge and starting to both take fire from and give fire to my infantry, just one squad that I've moved up. Starting to shuffle my troops around a little bit here, getting more infantry running up into the tree line to reinforce against what's coming over the bridge. I previously moved up the rest of a platoon, I think maybe even 2 platoons, up into the tree line here. So really starting to form a defensive line. Unfortunately, this Sherman III here, the commander, is going to get shot, and the tank is going to start reversing away after popping smoke. Taki AI doing its job to try and stay alive. However, it backs up right into the line of sight of the Jagdpanther. And that shell went right in one end and right out the other. There's your exit hole. And the crew is going to bail and immediately come under machine gun fire. So the first of many disasters with my armor in this one. Hopefully most of these infantry are going to get into the trees. I've moved the Firefly that was in the back of the farm up to the front. And the Achilles here is also starting to move up. So I'm going to try and get the Achilles up into the farm area as well, since it seems like most of my opponent's effort is coming from this section here. And my Firefly's in a pretty good position to start putting some HE into the Germans that are trying to cross the river. So it's going to give them a little bit of a surprise as they're coming across. Most of my infantry making it across the field. These guys are coming under quite a bit of fire, but they're still doing pretty well. Over on this side, I'm trying to sneak this Firefly up to get a shot onto this Panzer IVs, and it's going to do it, getting a penetration onto a Panzer IV. And I do lose sight of it after that, so I don't know if it's backed up or not. Nope, it is there, and it is knocked out. So there's just one more Panzer IV there, and it is going to spot and take a shot over at this Firefly, and it's going to miss. It hits the tree. So my Firefly shoots back, also hits the tree, and the Panzer IV's second shot does not miss, penetrating the weapon mount, setting the tank on fire, and the crew bails. So that is the second of my tanks knocked out, but at least I got one of the Panzer IVs. And in the background here, the Jagdpanther has actually started moving away, so I've lost sight of where that Jagdpanther has gone. With most of my troops now positioned in the tree lines, they're starting to put some fire into the Germans in the opposing hedge line across the river. My 2-inch mortars are also finally getting set up, so they're going to start firing away. This guy here. Very useful little mortars. They don't do a whole ton of damage, but they're pretty good at suppressing enemy troops. They're great for clearing out hedge lines, pretty much exactly what I'm doing here. These hedge lines, of course, are much shorter than the bocage. They don't offer a whole lot of hard cover, but they do offer some pretty good concealment. And again, more German contacts coming up. The Panzer IV has shifted over a little bit, and it saw my poor sacrificial scout jeep that rolled forward. Pretty quick work of the jeep there. But I was trying to locate the Panzer IV so I can try and get my Sherman III, my Firefly, or even my Achilles over to take some shots at it. Over on the east side, I've grabbed all the troops that were positioned to watch the tree line and the road, and I'm starting to move them up into the tree line that they were previously watching. Also bringing up the Sherman that was firing into the church. I did push up a 4-man team here. They crawled their way up so they can see all the way up to the town, and there's no contacts there. So I'm starting to bring my troops up to get into position. Starting to think that I might be able to make a play for the town if my opponent has most of his units on the far side of the map. So moving up my Achilles a little bit, I'm hoping that with it being open-topped, it will have an advantage on spotting, and it'll be able to catch the Panzer IV on the opposite side of the river. However, the Panzer IV is going to reverse away, which kind of ruins that plan a little bit, but the Achilles will move up and start giving some HE shells into the far side of the river. Over here, I got a section of infantry, just with the Bren gun, putting some suppressing fire into the Germans on the other side. You may have heard in the background there, I do have some fire missions coming in with my artillery, groups of 25-pounders. I'm calling one in on the TRP on the opposite side of the bridge, and I'm calling a second one in on the TRP over here where I saw that Jagdpanther. But other than that, it's just going to be some shots going back and forth. There's some of the artillery coming in now. Yeah, just a lot of shooting back and forth. This grouping of units here, I think it's mostly a platoon. These guys are, yeah, 4th platoon. They're kind of in a precarious position with that Panzer IV not being able to be seen by the Achilles. They're kind of just going to take a lot of fire for a while, but they seem to be holding their ground quite well. I'm going to turn the tree foliage off for this one, just to get a bit better of a view of what's going on with these tanks. So I'll start it up. My 25-pounders are continuing to hammer the tree line. I did spot some infantry in there, so I'm pretty happy that I'm probably killing some of them. The Sherman III, this is the one that's already taken 2 pens. It's going to continue to shoot at the German infantry, but then the Jagdpanther reappears, and this time it's not so lucky. That Jagdpanther pretty much drops it immediately in one shot. No crew gets out of that. So valiant crew there, taking 1 hit too many. That Panzer IV has tucked itself way back in the corner, so my Achilles, which has moved up again, I can't get a spot on it. And then another disaster here. A Panzerschreck has snuck its way all the way up into the trees and puts a shot into my Firefly and takes it out in one shot. So that is my Sherman 3 and another Firefly down in one turn. And to make matters worse, over on the side of the town here, there's a Panzer IV that's popped up. I still have the contact for the other Panzer IV, so I don't know at this point if this is the Panzer IV from behind the church or if this is another Panzer IV. It could be either. Checking in on the eastern group here, they have moved up. I've got the Sherman 3 in the front and the Firefly following behind, and I'm pushing up infantry. I've also began to bring in my reserve platoon that I had in the back. They were previously behind this tree line. They are now moving in because I am going to make a play on that town. In addition, I'm bringing the wasps over that I previously had on the west side that I was going to use to burn through the forest. I'm now bringing them over to the east as I'm going to try to use them to burn through the town. So a bit of a shift of my focus. Going for more defense on the west and trying to move my attack to the east. Moving up my Achilles again, trying to get line of sight onto that Panzer IV. It's basically sitting back there just hammering these troops in the tree line, so I need to deal with it. So Achilles is going to move up. Again, I'm hoping that the open top will help with the spotting. But as it moves forward and starts the turn to line up, that Panzer IV is actually going to run away and hide behind the trees. And the Achilles is not going to spot it as it goes by. I think there might be a little bit of a... Nope. That was pretty much in clear line of sight the whole way, and it just gets away. Unfortunate. Over here, there's been a couple spotting rounds that have started to land. So it looks like my opponent is getting ready to drop some artillery across this tree line. So at this point, I'm convinced he is 100% got all of his forces into this tree line area, and we pretty much rammed our main efforts into each other. Over in the east, I'm continuing to push forward towards the town. That Panzer IV is hiding behind the buildings. So trying to get my tanks into position to handle them. However, my Firefly, from all the way across the map here, spots the Jagdpanther, puts a shot into it, which deflects off the hull, and the Jagdpanther fires around back, which impacts the trees. This is not an engagement I want to take, so I'm going to be looking to get that Firefly out of there as quick as possible. The Firefly is going to throw it into reverse and start trying to back out of there. It does catch sight of some enemy infantry in buildings in the outskirts of the city. It tries to shoot them a little bit, but unfortunately the Jagdpanther still can see it and takes it out in a single shot. So the Sherman 3 is going to stop and shoot, and of course it's going to hit the tree and the shell bursts and kills my own troops. But that Sherman's going to start putting some fire into the outskirt buildings where it can see some infantry. And coming back over to this bridge, still have a lot of Germans pinned down in the bushes there. But now I get confirmation that it is indeed two separate Panzer IVs. So one Panzer IV there and one Panzer IV behind the church is still there. So that is two Panzer IVs on that side, one left that I know of on this side, and a Jagdpanther. At this point, I'm mostly just holding my position and hoping my Achilles and my one remaining Sherman 3 can get some work done and stop some of this armor. The Achilles is in a bit of a bad spot here. It's being hunted by the Jagdpanther. There's still Panzer IV over on this side that is also looking for it. And now Panzer IV has moved up there and another one there. So with their sight lines, it has very few places that it can hide without getting spotted by multiple tanks. So I spent a lot of time working on its line of sight to try and find a place I can put it. and I think I decided that it was best to try and go after the Panzer IV behind the church. But as it's starting to move over, those spotting rounds I found earlier that I initially thought were going to hit the tree line over farther west has now started dropping into the tree line right across the bridge here. So these are on-map 81mm mortars that are starting to rain down on me. And the trees will help a little bit, but it doesn't give a lot of protection against mortar shells. So these guys are going to be in an increasingly bad situation. The Achilles has managed to move into a much safer position using the trees as cover on both sides, so it has kind of a keyhole in this small arc. And you see a mortar round come down and just smoke pretty much an entire squad in one shell. You'll notice that my troops are now mostly pinned and they've stopped returning as much fire across the river. So with the Achilles in this spot here, it's hoping to catch the Panzer IV behind the church, but I believe that has actually swung around to the opposite side here. So there is now nothing in place for the Achilles to go after. Over on the little stone wall here in the farm field, enemy infantry up in the upper floors starting to shoot down along the side, so they're not really getting a whole lot of benefit of cover from that wall. So I did lose one guy there already. And also fire coming in from across the river onto the guys behind the wall. They're a little bit better protected from that incoming fire, but still I would prefer if they weren't taking any fire at all. And there's another artillery shell going off the trees, and look at that. There's a lot of casualties from another shell. That artillery, just 81mm mortars, proving to be incredibly devastating against my troops just hiding under trees. So, opponent is definitely preparing to make a push across that river by softening up my positions. The Panzer IV that was behind the church is now fully in its new position. Over on the eastern side here, yeah, expecting that. There goes the commander in one of the Shermans that was trying to make a quick flank up the side, runs into a couple German squads that hadn't been previously spotted. I am bringing up the majority of my infantry that I still have left on this side. My hope was to get the Sherman into the corner there, pin down anything on the outskirts, and this group of infantry can run across and get a foothold into the victory point there. Obviously, not quite going to plan. So with the artillery coming down and the panzers closing in, I've decided that I need to give up these tree lines. So I'm starting to pull back as much of my infantry as I can. They're basically just going to sit there and get pummeled into nothingness if they hang out there. So I'm going to fall back. I'm going to reinforce the farm area and try and make a stand there. So here they all come. My Achilles is also backing up. I'm worried that it was going to get a mortar round into its open top. So reversing it out of there. And it unfortunately strays into the line of sight of one of the Panzer IVs. The ammo cook-off there. And there it goes. Trying to reverse around the wreck on the road, and it gets smoked by the Panzer IV. So that is my last 17-pounder equipped vehicle. I have one piece of armor left, and it is a Sherman 3 on the east side of the map. So let's check in on the east side of the map here. A Panzer IV has popped up outside this road. Now, I think it's the one that was on the other side of the buildings that's gone back into the town and come around. So I'm hoping the Sherman 3 can get a shot off on it. Panzer IV is going to fire first, but hits the tree trunk. Panzer Shrek fires and misses. And then takes a side shot from the Panzer IV and gets taken out. Without its commander and the crew panicked, they didn't even really turn their turret to try and counter that. So a little bit unfortunate, and that is it for my armor. I now have no vehicles. My entire anti-tank is reduced to the 1 Piet per platoon that my infantry is equipped with. So my opponent knows he's taken out all of my armor at this point, so he is going to start aggressively moving the Panzer IVs forward. You can see the 3 of them, one going for each crossing, starting to move up. So there's not really a lot that can stop them now. As long as he stays at a Piat range, those tanks are effectively immortal. So they're just going to move up and start hosing down my positions with machine gun and cannon fire. One bit of good news, what limited amount there is my artillery comes in right as he's starting to mass to make a infantry push across this bridge. So these are air-bursting 25-pounder rounds, so hopefully those are just going to shred all that infantry that was starting to build up to make a push across. It's not going to turn the tide of the battle, but it makes me feel better. So over on the east here, the retreat is continuing. Oh, that was a brutal shot. All these infantry, it's basically the fresh platoon that I brought up to assault the town with. I'm pulling them back as quick as possible. My new plan is to sort of go back to the original plan, which is to defend the reverse slope. I am leaving some small groups of infantry. This just has 1 rifleman left to act as a bit of a delaying force as the Germans are starting to leave the town and come across towards the tree lines themselves. So hopefully they'll be able to buy this fresh platoon enough time to set up on the reverse slope, and we'll make a stand there. Back over on this side, things are continuing to go poorly. I'm getting the rest of my troops out. They're all lining up in the bushes. This little cluster is going to hang out there as long as they can, but I'm expecting them to get overrun fairly quickly. So my Bren carrier that I brought over is putting some fire into the Germans as they're trying to cross the field. I've kind of pinned the last little hope I have on this Piet team right here. So this is the detached anti-tank team off of one of my infantry squads that I've left hiding in the bushes. Hoping that if that Panzer IV comes any closer, it'll be able to shoot them with the Piet. Unfortunately, the Panzer IV is going around the other side, and I lose sight of it. But some fire coming back and forth as some of my troops in the trees on the west side there are starting to catch sight of Germans. This detachment of a squad is going to get annihilated by the Panzer IV. A Panzerschreck or Panzerfaust takes a run at the Bren carrier, but shoots way too high. And now more Germans showing up over on the other side. It seems like either he's moved more troops over to this side, or I just underestimated what he had defending the town versus what was over on the west. Didn't miss much on the west that turn, just a lot of fire going back and forth, not really a lot of casualties to speak of on either side, but starting to get a lot of solid contacts on German infantry as they're leaving their tree lines and starting to head towards the crossing. Gonna keep it on a bit of an overhead view here so we can see the entire front, so you can get a good sense of how quickly things are unraveling for the British army on this one. So remember, my last hope on this side is this single Piat team, which immediately loses 2 riflemen, and the last one with the Piat is going to break and start running away. 2 more little teams break. Germans are now coming across that field in force. The Panzer IV, absolutely nothing to stop it. Over on this side, infantry are starting to make for the crossing. Again, that Panzer IV firing with pretty much nothing to oppose it. The good news is I have stopped the push across this bridge with the artillery. The Panzer IV is going to sit there, not bothered by the airburst shells. However, the infantry that were getting prepared to cross that bridge did get obliterated, hopefully. And that is going to be the end of this turn. And I know when I've been beaten, so at the end of that turn, I hit the old surrender button. Not even going to go for a ceasefire, because my opponent could easily just run me over and take the victory points that he needed. So surrender it is. And here we have the end results, with me deploying 204 men, losing 71 killed, 41 wounded. I lose 7 tanks, 2 armored vehicles, and 2 other vehicles. Those were the sacrificial jeeps and a couple Bren carriers. My opponent deployed 289 men, of which I killed 27. 24 were wounded, and I destroyed the 1 Panzer IV. Yeah, overall, that was a complete disaster for the British forces. My Fireflies and Achilles not really contributing at all in the way they needed to, and I got overrun. I did find out afterwards from my opponent that he had upvetted his Panzer IVs to Elite, which is the highest veterancy you can give them, so I'm sure that made a pretty significant difference versus my veteran crews. That's likely how he was getting the spots first. And just a quick review of the map at the end of the game here. So he did have a reasonable amount of infantry. These are mostly split squads, but that's still the better part of a platoon or 2 coming across the field. He did have stuff up in the tower. After the game, I was chatting with Taki, and he had a machine gun team, I think the HQ up there, that I did end up killing. Did not end up killing the forward observer, though. Towards the middle, the results of the artillery was fantastic. I wiped out a large amount of the troops that were gathered to come across that bridge. And then he still had significant forces over on the far west side. So yeah, was a great game, fun map, would love to play this map again, but yeah, did not go well for me at all. Alright, thanks for watching, everyone.